Chapter 801. This newbie is just too inexperienced. When Lin Che announced her leave from the Hollywood film, everyone was puzzled. When Lin Che disappeared for a few years, everyone was shocked. When Lin Che chose to retreat from the showbiz industry while she was at her peak, everyone felt that it was strange. There were many puzzling mysteries about her. How could it not bring about astonishment and huge commotion? What was more shocking was that she had come today, and on top of that, she suddenly came to attend the wine reception. On the other side, Lin Che wore a simple, body-fitting long dress. The gown hugged her ample bosom and tapered at the waist. It then flowed freely down for the rest of its length. The mauve color suited her complexion very well. It seemed to have blended perfectly with her body and made her fair skin glisten. She looked very gentle, giving off an elegant and quiet aura that only very popular celebrities had. However, it was stunningly gorgeous on her. It was as if a stroke of bright color was painted on a picture with a cool background, and it would light up anyone's eyes immediately. The reporters exclaimed in amazement at the back. She was truly beautiful, much more than any celebrity who became famous after her. She had an exquisite look and many people tried to imitate her, but she stood out from all of them. She had an amazing figure. She is dainty, delicate, and lithe, and had a beautiful collarbone. Her neck was long and skinny, her legs were slender, and she was eye-catching. The damage was done when there was a comparison. The celebrities inside burst into a commotion. A moment ago, they were still talking about Peng Yu becoming the spokesperson, and in the very next second, someone announced that Lin Che came. Many people peered outside curiously, and the reporters outside swarmed forward and caused the entire place to very crowded and difficult to pass through. The situation was very chaotic at that moment. Someone had also posted the photos of Lin Che attending some big events on Weibo, and it immediately sparked a discussion online. This person who had disappeared from the media industry for a long time appeared again, and it gained attention across the internet. Although it was just attending events before her comeback, the reporters had brushed Peng Yu aside at that moment and all swarmed up to Lin Che. The entire situation seemed to be mocking Peng Yu and had sparkled many discussions. Many people began talking about it online. Lin Che is so popular. What are the reporters doing? They have completely brushed Peng Yu aside. Look at Peng Yu standing there, seriously, she looked so awkward. But Lin Che is just too beautiful. Look at both of them. You will know that Lin Che is the real deal and Peng Yu is the ostentatious one. At the event site, Peng Yu was so angry that her expression had changed completely. How could she not look like the ostentatious one? She was not able to respond immediately, and when she regained her senses, the reporters have already gone past her. She became so angry, like an inflated balloon, and she stood there. Both cheeks were flushed red and her hands clasped tightly together. She glared towards Lin Che's direction, and the angry look was beyond words to describe. Lin Che did that on purpose. Peng Yu only had this thought in her mind. She did not return any sooner or later, but chose this timing. She must have done it intentionally. She was right, Lin Che had done it intentionally. However, Lin Che did not have any ulterior motive. She was just provoked by Peng Yu, who mocked that she was over the hill, and thus, Lin Che wanted to prove it to Peng Yu. Now that Peng Yu had been proven wrong, she had only herself to blame for being too complacent. This was how the showbiz industry worked. If one aimed to achieve greater success, one had to tread on someone else. Lin Che refused to be trampled on, and thus, she launched her attack first. It was the era where anything could spark topics for people to talk about, and she believed that the reporters would definitely find something to write about when they saw her. Lin Che looked at them and smiled. She simply greeted them, "It has been a while." Afterward, Yu Minmin and the security blocked the reporters from coming forward and said, "We will hold a press conference in the future. We will, so don't be anxious. Just write something for today, and as for the other questions, we will address them slowly, okay? It's too chaotic today, so we can't say much as well." When the reporters heard that they would be holding a press conference in the future, they became very enthusiastic all of a sudden. They asked hurriedly if there would be a special interview for the press conference. They wanted to make an appointment to get the exclusive interview, and thus all of them appeared very passionate. However, Yu Minmin simply told them, "We will talk about this in the future. The interview is still not confirmed at the moment. It's too chaotic today. Everyone, please be more cautious." Lin Che did not respond to them, but since they had thrown out the possibility of holding a press conference and special interview, the reporters who wanted to get the opportunity for an exclusive interview had to first gain the approval of Lin Che's team. They did not dare to write anything negative about her. Instead, they praised her highly in order not to offend her. They watched her enter the venue and continued to sigh as they pondered about what they could write for their article. Actually, they did not have to brainstorm about what to write, the netizens on the internet had discussed a lot on that. Meanwhile, on site of the new product release press conference, the higher management that initially appointed Peng Yu as the spokesperson saw the huge uproar about the celebrity who was coming into the venue. They totally neglected their original spokesperson and turned their eyes to Lin Che. When they saw Lin Che, their faces lit up. Peng Yu had some resemblance to Lin Che, but when the real deal appeared, the difference suddenly became very distinct. In terms of elegance and exquisite looks, Peng Yu could not hold a candle to Lin Che at all. Besides, Lin Che's face was a total natural beauty, whereas, for Peng Yu, one could tell that she had done something to her face. The management sent someone over to welcome Lin Che. After a short while, Lin Che saw a few of the high management walking over. They greeted Lin Che. "Are you Miss Lin? We would like to invite you over for a chat. It's a little chaotic here. It's much quieter over there." Lin Che smiled and replied, "Is that so? Thank you very much then. I've just arrived and was looking for my way around here." Lin Che walked graciously behind them and followed them into the lounge. Everyone watched her entering the lounge and sat down with the officials of the management board. Once again, Peng Yu was left outside like an invisible person who seemed to be completely forgotten. This was too dramatic. Peng Yu was feeling very indignant, especially as she walked into the room and everyone stared at her as if she was a clown. She had been very popular in the industry for the last 3 years and she had never received such treatment. Her journey to becoming a popular celebrity was a smooth one. Her popularity kept on rising, and in recent years, she was one of the few artists with high potential, but the moment Lin Che came back to the industry, she was immediately swept aside. Peng Yu took a look into the room and headed straight for the room without being invited. The other artists who were watching the entire time became even more curious and began to talk among themselves. A newbie who is only popular for a few years wants to compete with Lin Che. Actually, the popularity of Lin Che previously was so much higher than that of Peng Yu now. Yes, you can't tell at first, but look at Lin Che. Even if she had just returned, she still maintained her presence as the top celebrity. Now, we all know where the true capability lies. Peng Yu is still too inexperienced. Chapter 802. Are you criticizing me blatantly before me? Meanwhile, in the lounge, Lin Che stood there and listened to the others introducing themselves. She saw Peng Yu walking towards her aggressively. When Peng Yu saw Lin Che, her eyes were glaring widely like round bulbs as if they were about to blow up at Lin Che. Turning around, her expression changed completely. Facing the people in front of her, she smiled and awkwardly spoke English. "Hello everyone. I am Peng Yu and this outfit is really beautiful and suits me very well. Thank you for your invitation and for gifting me with this outfit." The few people turned around and looked at Peng Yu. A tall, blonde man said, "Oh yes, hello. The outfit indeed suits you very well." Peng Yu laughed and looked at Lin Che. Then, she quickly continued to give a lot of praise to the outfit. She had learned basic English while she was at Hollywood and she was finally able to use them. She thought to herself, she was better than Lin Che in that aspect. She remembered the Hollywood director once said that Lin Che had the help of a translator when she was at Hollywood because her English was terrible. At least Peng Yu could hold basic daily conversations, although her grammar and accent were not that good. She continued to ramble on in English to some of them. They listened and found that what she said was amusing. They looked at her and said, "Thank you for your compliments. Let's do better together, let's do better together." Then, Peng Yu turned around and looked at Lin Che smugly. Lin Che seemed to be at a loss and was unable to voice her opinions. Peng Yu continued in English, "All of you may not know about this, but this Miss Lin over here did not have a good reputation. When she was filming in Hollywood, she pulled out in the midst of filming and I heard she ran off with a wealthy man. The director had no choice but to get me in to replace her role. I'm not too sure about what happened between them, but she had come back to see country again, seriously." Her audience appeared shocked and she continued with a look of sympathy, I'm not trying to criticize her, but if all of you want to get to know her better, I feel that you should also know a little about her background. Oh, and her English is not that good, that's the truth. I'm not sure how she communicates with you all. Oh, really? She spoke English very well just now. What? Peng Yu exclaimed in astonishment. Lin Che laughed and pursed her lips. She looked at Peng Yu good-naturedly. She tilted her head as if she was watching a clown performing stunts. Miss Peng Yu, don't you think that if you want to badmouth about someone, you should do it behind their backs? Lin Che spoke in very fluent American English. Her accent was very Americanized, but her choice of words was closer to British English, and it made her look very gracious and of a higher status. You, Lin Che looked at Lin Che and gasped in shock. Lin Che shot her a glance and turned around to speak to the men. I apologize to have made a fool of myself. In fact, she was not wrong. I pulled out of the film due to family reasons. I had to give up one of them, and given a choice, family matters most in my heart. Thus, even if I had to pay a price, it will not change my decision. I like your brand very much, and therefore, I agreed to come to the wine reception today. This is my first event since I returned. I guess everyone got very shocked to see me. Why did this swindler return again? They must have thought, and thus, everyone swarmed forward, haha. Lin Che had been living overseas for a few years and knew their personalities very well. While discussing work, they would prefer to adopt an easygoing attitude. Besides, the men were accepting of the females being family-oriented. She could tell that the few people were amused by how she had ridiculed herself earlier on and told her, family is indeed more important. Everyone can make their own decisions, and you chose family. That's not wrong. Besides, you have also paid a price for it, isn't it? You're right. It's just that people would take you as a swindler when you return, but it's unlike other people who are seen as fools. She was referring to the person beside her. Peng Yu had become a joke. She had criticized Lin Che right in front of her and still thought that she could not understand. At that moment, Peng Yu knew that she could not revert the situation anymore, especially when Lin Che intentionally used more profound words and grammar and spoke very long sentences. She could not understand what Lin Che was saying, but her dignity had been smashed onto the ground harshly, and it hurt her so badly. The officials of the high management said, Miss Peng, we will be continuing our conversation for a while longer. Feel free to stay or leave. Those few people were very interested in Lin Che's story and wanted to chat longer with her. Peng Yu stood there, and it was clear that she had been neglected. No matter how thick-skinned she was, she could no longer stay there any longer, and thus, she left the room. Meanwhile, Mu Feiren left Lin Che's house and got someone to watch over Union. She left by herself and put Union at Lin Che's place because that was also Gu Jingze's place, and it would be very safe, so she was not worried at all. At night, she called Wei Jingjing to ask where she was. Wei Jingjing said gleefully over the phone, that's right, Feiren. Come, I will wait for you. Let's cooperate together and remain as good friends. Mu Feiren sneered, we'll talk about this when we meet. It was sparkling everywhere. Servers were walking around the area where the private rooms were, and they seemed very busy. This was one of the places in B City with bustling nightlife, and it was also the most popular area where all entertainment services could be found. Mu Feiren walked in, and the moment she reached the entrance, she told Wei Jingjing to come down. Although Wei Jingjing was unhappy that she had to come down personally to pick up Mu Feiren, she relented as she thought that Mu Feiren was here to make money for her. When Wei Jingjing saw Mu Feiren, she could not help but be very jealous of her. Wei Jingjing thought that Mu Feiren did not have very beautiful looks, but because she was a popular celebrity, people were willing to spend a lot of money to get her over to eat with them. Sister Feiren, you came. I'm here to pick you. Wei Jingjing went over to grab her arm happily, but Mu Feiren brushed it off immediately. She looked at Wei Jingjing. I'm here to pass you some things. Wei Jingjing paused for a moment. What do you mean? Her voice turned indifferent towards the end. Mu Feiren turned to her phone and searched for the photos of Wei Jingjing and Mo Ding. Wei Jingjing knew that these were some photos she took with Mo Ding in the beginning. They were just ordinary photos of them together, and they were most probably taken from Mo Ding's phone. She laughed aloud. Mu Feiren, are you being too naive? What do you think you can do with these? We only took photos together. Even if you disclose these photos, Mo Ding would say that you are the one who betrayed him first. Mu Feiren sneered, this is just the beginning. Have a good look. The next photo was still a shot of them together, but they were much more intimate. Wei Jingje did not feel good, but she grimaced and looked unwilling to continue looking at those photos. The next photo. It was Wei Jingje's nudes and she looked very provocative. It was clear that someone was taking the pictures for her and she posed for them. Chapter 803. All of you, kneel down now. The pose was very seductive, yet it was very obscene at the same time. Wei Jingje was stupefied. Mo Ding was a jerk. He still kept these. He said he would not keep these and was just taking them for fun. You. What are you looking at? This is just the beginning. There are many more photos at the back. You know very clearly what sort of photos you had taken. You. Wei Jingje stormed up and wanted to snatch the phone away. Mu Feiren remained composed. It does not matter to me even if you snatch it away. This is just a copy. I have many backup copies in every cloud drive storage. If you want to take a look, I can send you some tomorrow. You Mu Feiren, are you threatening me? Mu Feiren looked at her. Mu Feiren was wearing her shades and it made her look even colder and aloof. I just want to have my own life. I'm not interested in Mo Ding, nor the entertainment industry. If you stop harassing me, I will not leak these out at all. If you really want the entire world to admire your provocative look, I'm fine with it. Wei Jingje was fuming mad. She was definitely afraid that the photos would leak out. They were too embarrassing. But at the same time, she could not stand Mu Feiren being so arrogant and threatening her. She long had enough of the life where she could only watch Mu Feiren being all high and classy while she could follow behind her all the time. Wei Jingje made up her mind and looked at Mu Feiren. All right, you can go. We agreed on this. Mu Feiren snorted. That time when she sneaked a chance to copy these photos from Mo Ding's computer, it was just a precautionary measure, but today, she could finally use them. However, at this moment, Wei Jingje grabbed something from the back and aimed at the back of Mu Feiren's head before giving it a hard swing. Mu Feiren felt a sharp pain before she lost consciousness and collapsed. Wei Jingje snorted and grabbed onto Mu Feiren, dragging her inside. Was Mu Feiren saying that she got her nudes? Was she trying to threaten her with those photos? Could she not have them as well? Even if she did not have them yet, she could take some at that moment. She was planning to drag Mu Feiren inside and let those bosses torture her, and then, she would film a video for everyone to watch. She would like to see if Mu Feiren could still threaten her in the future. Mu Feiren was pulled along unconsciously, and when people asked about her, Wei Jingje laughed and said that she was drunk and everyone believed her. Soon, Mu Feiren was dragged into the rooms and she heard Wei Jingje say viciously, "This is Mu Feiren. You guys are in luck. I'm giving you a good deal. She's not here to eat with you guys but to have fun with you all. Who wants to be the first? Make your move quickly." Everyone was stunned for a moment, but they took a glance at Mu Feiren, who had lost all consciousness. Looking at her face, her body, they could not hold back themselves any longer and were waiting to charge towards her. Some of them looked at each other and one of them could not wait any longer. He shouted, "If you are not going for it, I am." While speaking, he unzipped his pants excitedly and walked over. Mu Feiren was lifted upwards. Wei Jingje stood there laughing maliciously. She took out her phone and was about to start filming. However, at this moment, at the entrance, a cold voice called out, "Who's that behaving atrociously on my turf? Did you get my consent?" The people in the room were scared out of their wits when they heard this icy cold voice, which was as cold as the South Pole's ice caps. They all stood up and the entire room was very chaotic. "Press President Mo," someone said, trembling. Mo Jingyan dashed in and pulled away the man who was before him. He saw Mu Feiren, who was laid unconscious in the middle of the room and her clothes were disheveled. Thinking that these disgusting men had laid their dirty hands on her clothes, he became very angry and glared at the man in front of him. Then, he gave the man a kick, sending him across the floor. A scream could be heard in the room. President Mo, please let me off." Mo Jingyan was Black Eagle, the triad leader who called the shots for both the police and the underground world. The people knew about a little about his background. His methods were scrupulous and everyone feared him. Whoever saw him would shun him, let alone dare to offend him. Mo Jingyan crouched halfway on the ground and looked at Mu Feiren. He took off his clothes and put them over Mu Feiren. He patted her face and said, "Wake up, Miss Mu. Wake up." Mu Feiren lay there motionless, and when Mo Jingyan extended his hand, he felt blood at the back of her head and her palms were sweaty. He clearly knew what it meant. Mo Jingyan raised his brows. His icy cold gaze pierced through the people behind him as he turned around and looked at them. Who did this? Someone wanted to point fingers at Gu Jingze, but when they lifted their heads, they realized that Gu Jingze was very witty and cunning. The moment she sensed that something was amiss, she had fled immediately and she could no longer be seen. "It's not us, it's definitely not us, we will not dare to create trouble on your turf, it's really not us." Mo Jingyan narrowed his eyes and watched Mu Feiren silently. The silence seemed like a great aura that was about to blow up anytime soon, and everyone at the scene was shaking with fear. At that moment, Mu Feiren finally moved. Mo Jingyan quickly knelt down and lifted her up. Holding on to her, he looked at her and asked, "How are you feeling?" Mu Feiren looked at Mo Jingyan and remembered who he was. Her eyes moved a little and replied weakly, "I'm all right, it's just that my head hurts." "The back of your head, or it hurts inside?" Mo Jingyan asked. "The back. That's because the back of your head is bleeding. As long as it doesn't hurt inside, it's okay. Don't move. Once I settle matters here, I will take you to the hospital." Mu Feiren nodded weakly and she watched Mo Jingyan turning his head around slowly. His cold-eyed stare was like as icy as Iceland, and in the darkroom, he was also like a dangerous leopard pouncing around in the middle of the night. A dim light flashed in his eyes. "As for you all." The bosses shuddered again. Mo Jingyan ordered them, "Get on your knees." The few bosses were stunned. Usually, they were the ones ordering people around, but luck was not on their side that day as they bumped into Black Eagle. But still, they had not knelt down before anyone in their lives. Mu Feiren was shocked as well. She looked at Mo Jingyan and turned to look at the few bosses. She noticed that there was a boss of an entertainment company among them. How could he make them kneel down like that? They looked at one another. They wanted to plead with Black Eagle to save them some dignity. However, when they saw the sharp and fierce gaze of Black Eagle, they could not utter any word to beg for mercy. That gaze was irrefutable and they could not help but continue staring at one another. Mo Jingyan snorted, "Whoever gets on their knees first will suffer less punishment." The last one, he shot another powerful glance and his gaze was so murderous that it made everyone very fearful. He did not have to continue his words and those men became so frightened that they did not bother about anything else. With a loud thud, someone had gone on his knees. The people behind him saw it and they thought to themselves, it would be terrible for the last person, and they immediately went on their knees. Chapter 804. Shall we go and ride bicycle? Nobody in the room was standing. All of them knelt in front of Mo Jingyan and before Mu Feiren. Besides feeling shocked, Mu Feiren opened her eyes widely and looked at the man who was carrying her. She felt very grateful at the moment as she knew that he was trying to get back at them for her. Yet at the same time, she felt very awkward. Mo Jingyan said, "Good. The few of you at the front, each of you just have to give Miss Mu $10 million as a form of compensation. As for those at the back," he looked coldly at the man who was the last person to kneel down. He would do what he had said, and at that moment, that icy gaze made the man feel very close to death. "Cut off one of his legs as a keepsake." Ah, the last man turned ghastly pale and was sweating profusely. He fell flat on his face and cried out, "No, I beg you. Don't do this to me." When the men in the front first heard that they were supposed to give $10 million, they felt that it was not worth it, but when they heard that the man was going to lose one of his legs, they felt very relieved all of a sudden and hurriedly went out one by one to hand over the money. Mu Feiren was utterly shocked. She wanted to stop them but was scooped up at once from the ground by Mo Jingyan. "Let's go, Miss Mu. I will bring you to the hospital," he said. Mu Feiren was appalled with her mouth agape, but it's their punishment for laying their fingers on you. Don't care about them. This sum is considered too light a punishment for them. Let's go. Mu Feiren did not know what kind of man he was. She simply felt that this man was very domineering and he was amazing. Subconsciously, it also reminded her of that night and that man must be as domineering as him, giving people a hard time who could not shun away. However, this man before her made her feel very safe. It was most probably because he helped her twice, so she knew that he would not harm her. When Gu Jingze heard that some of the bosses had their arms and legs chopped off, she was so frightened that she started to tremble as well. She waited outside for a long time. Then, she saw that man who was wearing leather clothes. He looked unruly and had a dark presence. However, he was very composed when he carried Mu Feiren onto the car. Then, he drove off. Gu Jingze quickly went to look for someone to ask about that man and the reason he appeared there. When the server heard her question, he giggled. That's our boss, the great President Mo. Everyone knows that he is Black Eagle, but nobody dared to address him that way, so everyone called him President Mo. Gu Jingze took a glance at the place. To be able to open such a huge and grand club, the owner must be of some background, and needless to say, he was the reason why the few bosses in the room had even lost their arms. Just now did he really order someone to remove their arms? Ayo, that. Someone said that our President Mo told them to give that lady $10 million each as a form of compensation, and as for President Zhang, who was the last to kneel down, his leg was chopped off. Didn't you see it just now? He was carried away to the hospital by the back door, Ayo. That's tragic. Nobody is going to say anything about this. Gu Jingze was so shocked that her face turned pale. The server said, care. Who dares to have a say in what our President Mo does? If you let President Zhang report it to the police, see whether he dares to do it. The moment he calls the police, he won't be the only person who will die. Gu Jingze found it even more frightening. She wondered if the $10 million was given to Mu Feiren. In that case, it would benefit Mu Feiren again. She was fuming mad and feeling very frustrated, especially since Mu Feiren still had her photos, but for her, she had nothing against Mu Feiren. When Lin Che ended her work at night, she returned to the Gu family. Gu Xinian had gone to bed very early. He had always been very independent. When he was back in Seattle, he was trained to sleep alone when he was 1 year old. Now that he was 3 years old, he was long familiar with sleeping by himself on a little bed and would not throw a fuss to sleep with Lin Che. As Lin Che walked into the house, she saw Gu Jingze reading a book. She said, Iya, this is so tiring. It had been a long time since I had to pit against others. I'm still not used to it. Gu Jingze lifted his head and saw Lin Che flop onto the sofa, and she looked very exhausted. He put his book aside on the table next to him and walked over to hug Lin Che. Turn over. I will give you a massage. Lin Che nodded and laid herself across his lap for him to massage her. He exerted the right amount of strength and the force was perfect, and it felt very comfortable. Iya, you are good at this. Is Nianian asleep? Did he create any trouble? She asked. Gu Jingze replied, He slept very early. Are you waiting for me then? Lin Che asked again. Gu Jingze replied, I don't usually sleep early. How was it today? Are you accustomed to it? Of course, I had expected it already. It didn't take long to defeat her completely. Of course, it was because I made a surprise attack. She didn't expect me to turn up for the event, so I can't use this method anymore. But regardless of whatever reason, I'm still very amazing. Yes, you are the most amazing. Gu Jingze watched her feeling proud of herself. He laughed while shaking his head. Lin Che raised her head. What? You don't look like you believe me. When did I not? Lin Che snorted. She knew that these small conflicts were just child's play to him. Lin Che said, I'm going for filming in a few days. I feel like I'm enjoying the days when I don't have to disguise or put up a pretense, but soon, I will need to start disguising myself when I go on the streets. Gu Jingze pondered for a moment. This is your own choice, right? Of course I knew about this very clearly, sigh. I was just lamenting for a moment. Gu Jingze gave her a gentle massage before picking her up and said, then, shall we grab this chance to go for a walk tonight before people start recognizing you? Alright, of course. Lin Che jumped up at once. She looked at Gu Jingze and told him, let's go. Quote. Gu Jingze took Lin Che's hand in his and the two of them went out in their casual clothes. When they were outside, Gu Jingze wanted to drive but Lin Che pointed to the bicycle at the side. Hey, Gu Jingze, do you know how to ride this? Gu Jingze turned his head around and asked in a dumbfounded tone, what are you trying to do? Can we ride on this? Let's ride on this and go out. This is what the servants ride on when they go to the neighborhood, right? Yes, what's wrong with it? Lin Che asked while blinking. Gu Jingze narrowed his eyes. Ride on this? What's good about riding on this? I can take you out for a spin in the car. The more Gu Jingze refused, the more curious Lin Che became. She wanted to see how he looked like riding on the bicycle. Let's go, Gu Jingze. Take me out on this, please. I don't like to ride on cars. I want to ride on this and go out. Gu Jingze furrowed his brows and he seemed very unwilling to ride on that. If the servants saw him riding on that. However, Lin Che continued to tug him and looked at him cheerfully. It seemed like she would not back off unless he agreed. Chapter 805. I just want to tease you. Gu Jingze looked at it for a long time. He could only turn his head and ask, are you sure? Lin Che shook her head vigorously. Let's go. If not, I can ride the bicycle and you can stay still behind me. He looked outside and sighed. Never mind, let me ride it. If she was the one riding the bicycle, he thought that they would be close to death. He just got back the life with his wife and his child, so he did not want to get into trouble so soon. Gu Jingze went over to adjust the bike. He was strong and carried the bicycle as he quickly walked out. Lin Che looked and covered her mouth, shocked at his strong look. Then, she quickly followed him. Looking at that strong arm made her feel a sense of longing. She felt that strong men were the best at making one feel safe. Thus, looking at him doing that made her feel extremely good. She pridefully straightened her back and pulled him out. After heading out, he purposely found a small road with no pedestrians usually. After sitting on the bike, he still felt uncomfortable when looking at the bike. But he forced his eyes, thought about getting it over and done with, and sat on properly. Lin Che looked at his unwilling expression and speechlessly said, Hey, I just wanted you to ride a bicycle. Is that so difficult for you? Is riding the bike a bad thing? Gu Jingze scanned his surroundings. It was alright, but this was in the neighborhood, so if someone saw the head of the Gu family coming to ride a bicycle, he had never ridden like this. Lin Che pondered for a bit and smiled wickedly. Upon seeing how he had seated down, she quickly climbed up the backseat and patted his back. She said, Faster, we are heading off. Gu Jingze said, Okay, hold on tight. Lin Che acknowledged and just sprawled across Gu Jingze's back. She felt him move just a little. Lin Che laughed. What's wrong? Gu Jingze froze, feeling how she touched him in an extremely comfortable manner. Gu Jingze was still in a daze when Lin Che patted his back. Faster, let's go. Seriously. Gu Jingze immediately paddled quickly. Lin Che bent forward, almost hitting him. Her chest once again leaned at his back. A faint slight uncontrollably appeared on Gu Jingze's face. He did not know that behind him, Lin Che had just started executing her devilish ideas. Lin Che felt the bike moving, the wind blowing across her hair. She raised her arms and shouted comfortably. She turned her face to the side and looked at Gu Jingze. Everything a handsome guy did was dashing. She did not understand why he thought riding a bicycle would be embarrassing, since he looked so cool as if he did not use a single bit of strength and just paddled on in a relaxed way. The wind blew at the strands of hair on his forehead, making him look more cheerful. His entire face was revealed, every line on his face touched by the wind. That look was extremely beautiful, as if the wind was using its gentle hands to touch every perfect line on his face. Lin Che turned her head to appreciate it for a while and immediately returned to pulling her face at him. Her hands wrapped around his waist from behind. Gu Jingze felt her tight squeeze and said, Don't worry. You won't fall. Lin Che said, Now, I can't, but who knows if I will later. She smiled mischievously. Before Gu Jingze noticed, she slipped her hands underneath his clothes. Slightly cold hands slipped in. His body paused and asked, Hey, Lin Che, what are you doing? My hands are cold. You need to help me warm me. This reason was okay, but warming hands meant warming hands. Could you stop moving your hands up? He almost shouted and fell. His voice became rough. He tipped his head and could see her at the corner of his eye. She was laughing increasingly arrogantly, her small face brightening up. She really thought this texture was too good. His chest abs were not too big and not too small, his muscles tight with perfect shapes. Touching it felt like a piece of art. The texture was so good that she felt like crying. She could not keep her hands off. She thought, with this body, she could never leave him because she was angry. What if such a pretty and soft body was touched by another woman? Thinking about it made her mad. Definitely unacceptable. His voice became rough like a deep double bass. He mumbled to her, Lin Che, if you continue to teasing me, are you going to take responsibility? Her hand stopped, but she felt Gu Jingze stopping the bike immediately. Oh no, he was going to take revenge. Lin Che felt ominous. She wanted to escape, but she did not want. Her hand was immediately captured by him. Afterward, he flipped over the bicycle, looked back, and pulled Lin Che, looking into her eyes. Lin Che felt guilty of being caught, immediately losing her air of confidence. I cannot. I don't know how to. You better look carefully. What is this place greater than how can I? Lin Che madly avoided his deathly tempting gaze, trying to find an opportunity for her to run away. But Gu Jingze did not even give her a chance. Upon seeing her like this, he immediately said, all right, if you don't know how to, I will have to teach you from scratch. What? Lin Che looked up and saw him pressing his lips against hers. That warm voice was somehow tempting, the scratchy tone was extremely charming. When Lin Che took a breath, he once again bit her lips. There was no one in this forest lane and the yellow lights shone on the top of their heads, leaving behind a shadow just like a pair of lovers. However, at this moment. Chapter 806, Who asked you to tease me on purpose? From a distance, someone suddenly yelled, hey, whoever is there. What are you doing on the streets? What are you up to in this secluded place? Lin Che frantically let go of Gu Jingze. Shortly after, Gu Jingze also raised his head. Lin Che was so scared that she hid behind Gu Jingze. Oh, shoot, did someone come? Did someone see them? Fortunately, nothing was too revealing, but that action was also ambiguous and also passionate, and the person who arrived was a residential security guard. He was holding a gleaming flashlight, shining it strangely. This was a famous area for the wealthy. In the residential area, there was a huge gap between every house as if it was a park to allow people to walk by, just like visiting landmarks. Of course, one should never offend anyone in this place. Not only must one be rich to be able to buy a house here, but very affluent to be able to live here. However, as the duo seemingly rode bicycles, the security guard walked straight towards them and shone the flashlight on them. He thought, whose helpers or maid has such bad manners to date at night and in the public? However, the light instantly shone upon an indifferent face. When the security guard saw those prominent features, the flashlight in his hands fell on the ground with a clatter. Who was that? Who was, of course, he recognized him. In the greatest highlight of this residential area lived Gu Jingze's family. It was impossible to forget about the wealthiest person in the residential area. His first reaction was, this was terrible. Heavens knew what he had just done. Sorry, Mr. Gu, I did not notice you. I will leave now. Please continue. Gu Jingze had already shielded Lin Che behind him. Lin Che was initially wildly hoping that he did not see her. However, the security guard continued saying, I wish you and your wife will live to a ripe old age in conjugal bliss. Be joyful every day. Lin Che felt so embarrassed. She did not know how to face all these residential security guards tomorrow. She covered her face and humped from the back. Gu Jingze could only stare wordlessly at her. Okay, isn't this your fault? See if you dare to randomly tease me again next time. No, she really did not dare to do so again. The security guard immediately scampered off. He would have never thought that the tycoon liked these sorts of things. Nevertheless, he had heard before that Mr. Gu and his wife had a great relationship. He never thought that he would witness one of their frequent public displays of affection. He also heard that Mrs. Gu had just returned. If they could not contain themselves just a little while after Mrs. Gu was back, he should be more careful in the future. Gu Jingze still did not tease her again tonight because once they got home, they received a call from Mo Jingyan. Mu Feiren was hospitalized. Lin Che immediately ran to the hospital. Gu Jingze had no choice but to follow along. Upon reaching, Lin Che saw hordes of people in the hospital. She realized there were all Mo Jingyan's subordinates after she walked closer. Lin Che quickly ran inside. Upon seeing her arrival, Mo Jingyan said, "Miss Mu is fine. Don't worry, she is only frightened." Lin Che looked at him gratefully. "I heard the incident happened in your shop. Thank you." "No problem, it is what I should do." Mo Jingyan smiled. Lin Che thought when he said that, it meant that it was because he was working with Gu Jingze. She did not think otherwise and walked inside. Gu Jingze, however, walked slowly from behind, looking at Mo Jingyan. "Hey, since you already locked her down, can you quickly make a move? It would be great if he could stop this woman from looking for Lin Che in the middle of the night for no reason." Mo Jingyan lit a cigarette. The doctor at the side saw but did not dare to say anything. Surprisingly, it was Mo Jingyan who looked and remembered that he was in the hospital. He sheepishly put out the cigarette and gradually spoke, "This is not urgent. I'll take it slow." Gu Jingze smiled and asked, "Take it slow? She is considering returning to the United States. If you take it any slower, you can only go visit her in the United States. But I remember the United States recently restricted your entry, you are on the top of their blacklist. If she went to the United States, you will have to rack your brains, right?" "She is returning to the United States?" Mo Jingyan asked. Gu Jingze nodded. "I have already spoken enough. You watch out for yourself." Mo Jingyan sank deep into thought. Mu Feiren already felt fine. But when she woke up, she felt a throbbing pain at the back of her head. Luckily, it was just a light injury. She just had to apply some ointment and bandage it. Lin Che said, "That vixen is so disgusting. She dared to do this to you." Mu Feiren replied, "She is indeed such an evil person, just that she is more terrible now." "Then, what are you going to do? I cannot drop this. If you don't let her know what we can do, she will never turn over a new leaf." Mu Feiren said, "She thinks I am gullible to bullying. Yes, in the past I had no friends, no family, and only them. I only trusted them, so they think I am nothing after I left them. But now, I have friends and family." Mu Feiren looked at Lin Che, feeling grateful that when she was deciding on her destination, she chose Seattle, her capital of romance because of the movie, Sleepless in Seattle. In the end, she actually met Lin Che there. She looked at Lin Che and smiled. "Before I met you, I really thought that Wei Qingqing was my best friend. I lost faith in friends. But after meeting you, I realized people like Wei Qingqing are not even considered as friends. You made me understand what is friendship and what is love. Looking at you, I feel that there are so many things I have not experienced like love." Lin Che covered her hands. "I am nowhere as good as you say I am. You are always so sincere to the people around you and that is the best." She sighed, looking in front of her and remembering what Wei Qingqing had done to her these past few years. "This time, I will not let her off. Tomorrow, a lot of people will see her photos. I will bring to her whatever she is most afraid of." Lin Che said, "That's right. You need to use extreme measures to deal with people like her." Lin Che despised people who use their friends as shields or backstab them, especially those bad people who use them for a very long time. Lin Che said, "But Feiren, if you leave here and stay in Seattle alone, I am worried that once I leave, Mo Ding will be even more free from all inhibitions and bother you again." Mu Feiren said, "But I really don't want to stay here. Even staying in the same city as them makes me feel sick." Nevertheless, what Lin Che said was also correct. This made Mu Feiren feel slightly conflicted. Chapter 807. He had very special feelings for her. "You can be well assured when you stay here. I can guarantee that those two cheaters will never have another opportunity to harass you." Mo Jingyan suddenly walked in, steadily striding in step by step. Mu Feiren looked at Mo Jingyan. "You?" Mo Jingyan glanced at her. I have my own ways. I will not make a big deal out of it. I will not let Union get hurt. And you can do anything you want to do here without worry. Mu Feiren sighed. Whatever I want to do. Right now, I just want a peaceful life and nothing else. That is because you are not at peace. After you calm down, you will have things you want to do. I can give you this peacefulness. Mu Feiren weighed his words. She raised the corners of her pretty eyebrows, looking a little confused. Why are you helping me? No pain, no gain. How could I bother you? Mo Jinyan replied, it's fine. This is a small matter. I barely lifted a finger. Furthermore, I really liked Union and I also do not want someone to do bad things to such an adorable and sensible girl. Therefore, I will let my subordinates do it. Don't worry, you are not bothering me. Mu Feiren still felt surprised. She was not acquainted with Mo Jinyan, but why was he always helping her? If he wanted something from her, she really did not think she had anything valuable left. Beauty. With her looks, he could get anyone to offer themselves anytime if he wanted to. Fame. She did not think that her fame will be of any use to him. He did not seem like a fan of a celebrity or model. Furthermore, she had a child. In the minds of men, a woman like her had probably lost some value. Although Lin Che also felt that it was strange, since he was willing to help, he was temporarily considered an ally. Lin Che carried her shoulder. That's right, you stay here and we can all help you. If you are there, so far away that we cannot see you, we cannot even help you if we want to. You can be indifferent about it, but there is still the matter of Union's safety. Mu Feiren seemed to have thought of Union. She squeezed her hands and at last, nodded her head in a compromise. Lin Che smiled and said, we can still stay together every day. My Nianian will definitely be very happy. Mu Feiren sighed. Okay, I lose to you. I'll stay. Lin Che looked up and saw Mo Jinyan standing there, looking at Mu Feiren silently. That gaze made Mu Feiren a little uncomfortable. She looked down, not daring to face him. Lin Che suddenly felt some suspicions arise in her mind. A bystander was always objective, she suddenly thought. The reason Mo Jinyan helped her may not be because Gu Jingze, but because Lin Che naturally did not dare to think deeper. But her eyes roamed between the two of them with some suspicion. While Mu Feiren was entrusted to the hospital to be taken care of, Lin Che went back home with Gu Jingze. As it was already late into the night, Lin Che fell asleep lying in Gu Jingze's arms in the car. Even after reaching home, it was Gu Jingze that helped her take off her shoes, socks, and clothes. Looking at his girl, Gu Jingze helplessly glanced at his lower part that was unable to be relieved. He heaved a sigh while hugging her to sleep. The second day. Yu Minmin called early in the morning, saying that there already a lot of inquiry calls made to the company. The reporters' phones were bombarded with calls. Many want to collaborate, calling to ask if she was preparing to film, participate in shows, or interviews. Yu Minmin said, you have not seen how people on the internet said you look dashing yesterday. You definitely crushed Peng Yu. She is probably enraged now. I did not do anything. I am innocent. I only went over to attend a reception. Lin Che smiled. Yu Minmin said, yes, you happened to make a timely appearance, making Peng Yu seem very abjected. Lin Che also scanned to open the information on the internet herself. She had not opened it for so long that she even kind of forgot her Weibo password. She spent half the day recovering her password and then opening the message and saw the last Weibo post. There were many comments, but she did not open it. She took a photo of the weather of B City today and posted it with a caption, today is a great day. There is no smog, no pain. Just with this single Weibo post, her Weibo exploded in no time. Many people quickly came to spectate. Someone discovered that this was definitely B City. There was smog a few days ago, but the smog just cleared in the past 2 days and the sky was clear and good. Lin Che was in the country, in B City, and just posted such a suggestive Weibo post. Could it be that she was really coming back? Multiple media outlets had also aimed at Lin Che. Every single movement made the media startle and quickly follow up. Not even half an hour after the Weibo post was posted, media outlets had already started reposting it everywhere. Comments said that Lin Che suddenly made an appearance yesterday and recently updated her Weibo today. She recently resumed posting on Weibo, so it seemed like her return would not be far away indeed. Before her return, her fans caused a stir. The number of Weibo reposts reached tens of thousands in an instant. It seemed like Lin Che gained good momentum for her return. After Lin Che woke up here, she received word that Mu Feiran had been discharged and was looking for a house to live in. With her assets, she could still easily buy a house. Hence, Lin Che called Mu Feiran to tell her that Union could be sent to study at Xinian's kindergarten. Of course, Mu Feiran thought that it was a great idea. Nianian was independent and had the wisdom and maturity above other children of her age, but Union was naive and muddle-headed. If she went to kindergarten alone, Mu Feiran would be worried about other children bullying her. Fortunately, since Union would be in the same kindergarten as Nianian, no one would probably bully her again. Nianian would definitely protect her. Peng Yu was already raging in the room. What was going on? She was doing the endorsement just fine, but she never would have thought that Lin Che was so arrogant. Not only was her endorsement deal off, but she was also completely crushed by Lin Che. She looked at her team angrily. How did you do your work? Lin Che has not even returned and she is already so formidable. Do you want me to completely end up as her shadow in the future? They also had no choice. Who knew Lin Che's impact after her return would immediately be so great? Just one news on her return and it caused an uproar, almost making a clean sweep of the entire entertainment industry. Clearly, Lin Che was different from other actresses that did not have many hardcore fans. Lin Che had many hardcore fans that always followed her, never changing for years. There were too many good stories left behind and also too many incidents. Her presence was too strong in people's hearts. Seeing how everyone stayed silent, Peng Yu angrily asked, did anyone say about her signing anything? Someone from the side immediately answered, apparently, she signed the contract for Yin Shengshu's new drama and she landed the job out of nowhere. She kicked out the previous female lead. Of course, everyone thought Yin Shengshu's method was indisputable. How could a newcomer compare to Lin Che? Chapter 808. Did you forget about what you did that year? Peng Yu snorted. Taking up a drama immediately after she returns, does she even know how to act anymore? Peng Yu said, all of you, go find media and send them the news. At this time, the Gu family naturally all knew about the news that Lin Che returned to the country. Gu Shand already asked Mu Wanqing if she was aware of it the first thing in the morning. Mu Wanqing gave vague replies for a long time. She did not answer, meaning she did not say anything anyway. Gu Shand could only wave his hand and let her leave first. Suddenly, someone came and said, Yun Kuoshan would like to meet you. Gu Shand thought for a long time. Let him in. Yun Kuoshan threw a tantrum at Gu Shand the moment he entered the room. Old master, I really cannot comply with this. How could this happen? My Luoluo is so preoccupied with your Jingze that she lost all her appetite. Your son, on the other hand, fetched Lin Che back blatantly in front of our Luoluo. He even let the shareholders see the child Lin Che gave birth to. This obviously shows that he wants that child to be the heir. By that time, your Gu family will end up in the hands of an actress with no background. This Jingze usually looks so clever, but he is so lost in the lies of this Lin Che. He does not get it at all. Our Luoluo is so nice to him and gave him whatever he wanted, but he doesn't like her. The most important part is that not only did he not said he didn't like her earlier, he played with her for so long and just threw her away like that. Our Yun family took to great lengths to come to see country and this is so embarrassing. Does this mean we are going to be thrown away after being done used? Gu Shand watched him finish talking. He was also suppressing his anger. This Yun Kuoshan initially thought he could marry his daughter to Gu Jingze, so he abandoned his previous promise with Gu Shand and turned to help Gu Jingze. Only now did he remember to come to find him. Gu Shand said, Kuoshan, I know you are anxious. But let me tell you, I also have no say over this matter. After all, the one who calls the shots in this house is Jingze now. I have already lost. I am squeezed out by him and there are not many left who can speak and stand next to me. What else can I help you say? Yun Kuoshan also understood Gu Shand was purposely blaming him for the situation today. Yun Kuoshan sighed and paced his tone. Am I not anxious now? Luoluo is such a good girl. Do you not like her? She is a great fit with your Jingze. But Jingze doesn't listen to me. Your complaints here are useless. Ji Yushan said. Yun Kuoshan looked at him. You can't say that. As long as you stand by our Luoluo and go against that Lin Che, the people of the Jiyu family will at least give you some face. After all, with your vision, no matter how much power Jingze has, he is still young. He cannot be compared to your knowledgeable self. Everyone will trust your judgment. If you don't like Lin Che, they will also not like Lin Che, right? I have already stepped down, so I am not going to care about these things. We have no control over the children's feelings. You should also just give up. If you are really desperate, our Jingyu is also single. Why not I introduce him to Yun Luo? Yun Kuoshan looked at Ji Yushan, who seemed to not care anymore. He knew he did not purposely want to not care about himself, but Yun Kuoshan had already made the decision when he came. If he did not get a response, he would not leave. Old master, our Yun family and you have so many years of friendship. My father already knew you since he was young and worked hard for so many years to get to where he is today. Are you really going to just abandon us and break off our friendship? Kuoshan, what are you saying? I also have no choice. I am old, just waiting for my burial now. You have to stand by me for this incident, Yun Kuoshan sternly said. Ji Yushan scoffed coldly. Although I step down, I don't think I will need to do whatever others ask me to do. Yun Kuoshan laughed. There is one incident years ago that you have probably forgotten, but my father still remembered this clearly. Ji Yushan's bony hands stopped. He raised his head and looked at him. The indifference in his eyes disappeared, only to be replaced by some sort of menace. What did you say? I am not sure if you still remember that your son had a relationship outside, many years ago. You stopped it later, causing him to lose his sense of belonging in this home and only think about leaving to live outside. In the end, he became a recluse with no aspirations, never to return. Even until now, you cannot even see him after many years. Ji Yushan's aged face froze. His wrinkle-covered eyes stared at Yun Kuoshan. As Yun Kuoshan spoke, his expression became lighter. Apparently, that woman gave birth to a boy, but you threw him into a frozen and snow-covered land to freeze him to death. In the end, no one knew if he actually froze to death. When your son went to find him, the child already went missing. He always suspected it was you who killed the child, but you actually don't know where the child went, right? Ji Yushan looked at him grimly. Stop talking. You desperately hid this incident, so even now, your daughter-in-law did not know she was cheated on. Her husband did not return home because of you, that his son born out of wedlock was missing. You hid all of these so well that not a single one of the three brothers in the Jiyu family knows about it. Jiyu family's reputation is still great to outsiders, saying how the Jiyu family is well disciplined, that there were no wrongdoings since the ancient times. During your term, there was also not a single speck of blemish. What if outsiders were to know about this, or even just the three brothers know about this? How will they look at you? Knowing that there was another Jiyu family child outside who can snatch his position anytime, how will the Jiyu family look at you? How will they look at Jingze? I think by that time, the Jiyu family will be pretty messy. Enough. Ji Yushan looked at him. What do you want? I have already said that even if I threaten him, Jingze will not listen. Furthermore, I have also lost the ability to force him. I don't want to do anything. Like I just said, I hope you will always stand by me. Yun Kuoshan put his hand behind his back and looked at Ji Yushan while smiling widely. It seemed like this person was in a merry mood now. Lin Che brought Nianian to kindergarten together. She specifically told Nianian that Union was also coming to class today, so he should remember to take care of Union. Nianian naturally shrugged and said, "Isn't this what I have been doing all along? This little girl always follows me. I was just a little freer." Lin Che said, "Didn't you say you may marry her in the future? Of course, you have to protect her from now on." Chapter 809. I can help you have a daughter. Nianian had no choice but to nod. Lin Che only smiled and left after seeing her little guy head inside. At the preschool, all the little children welcomed Union happily while she sat there. After all, a new friend came halfway. Furthermore, this friend was so cute and pretty. She was so fair and clean like a porcelain doll. Everyone looked at her and asked, "What is your name?" Are you also 3? Who are your parents? In large preschools like this, children seem to know the importance of who their parents were. These thoughts were probably instilled by their parents or the teachers here. Union looked at everyone, dazed. She obediently said, "My name is Union." What Union? Right, which family is Union? There are so many people called Union. My nanny's child is also called Union. Union was so scared she did not know what to do. She stared at the front and said, "I am Mu Union." What Mu Union? Are you from the Mu family? At this moment. Go away. Gu Jingze instantly went to stand at the back. Nianian's development was slower, so he was not as tall as the rest. However, the petite boy emitted a strong aura. Everyone seemed to have detected some anger from the little face that usually showed no emotion, so a few of them quickly jumped down from above. Union quickly launched herself at Gu Jingze once she saw her. She happily called, "Brother Nianian, you are here." Gu Jingze walked over, silently sitting next to Union. Union hugged Gu Jingze's elbows and said, "Brother Nianian, mommy said I can play with you every day from now on." That's great. I thought I would go back to Seattle. You are not going back anymore, he said, patting her little head. Gu Jingze also raised his head and told the preschool teacher, "Teacher, she is sitting with me from now onwards." The teacher looked blankly, doubtfully thinking, this tone it was not a question but an order. She was ordered by a little kid. But most importantly, she compromised immediately in her heart. First of all, it must have been because his expression was too natural and firm. Second, it was definitely because she knew her family was different from the others. The teacher thought while wanting to cry, why was this troublesome little kid in her class? The other children did not dare to bother Gu Jingze. He gave a scary first impression. Someone knew that he came to school with a luxurious car and a bodyguard, so they naturally thought he was a powerful person. They all wanted to be friends with Gu Jingze, but he did not like to talk. These few days, they slowly started treating him as the boss of the class, so basically, everyone would read his facial expressions. Great, the new little girl knew him. Although they were curious about the pretty little girl, they could only stay away. At night, when Mu Feiren came to fetch Union, she seemed very happy. Mu Feiren smiled and looked at Gu Jingze. It must be because of Nianian that she is so happy. Thank you Nianian. Gu Jingze looked up and said, "No problem. Who asked me to be the first one to know her?" After going back at night, Mu Feiren heard from Union that brother Nianian was very powerful at the preschool. He even protected her. Mu Feiren immediately called Lin Che to praise Nianian, saying how Nianian was very great. Upon hearing that, Lin Che looked at Nianian who was at the side. She thought, there was no trouble recently. It seemed to be the right choice to send Nianian to preschool. Gu Jingze came back and saw Lin Che happily smiling. He walked over and asked, "Did something good happen? Why are you smiling like that?" Lin Che said, "Nothing much. It's just that Nianian did a great job at the preschool. I am very glad he is finally not causing trouble outside." Nianian was still at the side listening. He raised his head and asked, "Mommy, shouldn't I receive some reward for my good performance?" Lin Che said, "Is verbal commendation not enough?" Nianian said, "Do you have any sincerity?" Lin Che said in a flabbergasted tone, "Then okay, let me think about what I can reward you." Nianian looked up with an incredulous expression. But at least it is not just verbal commendation. Lin Che's expression brightened. She ecstatically snapped her fingers and said, "I have not brought you to an amusement park before. Why not I reward you to a day at an amusement park with me?" Lin Che thought, wasn't an amusement park like a child's heaven? However, she had always thought previously that her child was too young. Even if she brought him there it would not be fun, so she never brought him there. Now that he was already at preschool and sensible, it should be okay to bring him there. She thought about wearing cute little hats to the amusement park. She could not help but look forward to letting him wear the cute accessories the amusement park especially prepared for children. That must be very pretty. Nianian was never really obedient since he was young. She had not seen a cute look on him. Lin Che clapped her hands. "Okay, we have decided to go to the amusement park. How about that, Nianian?" You must be happy, right? It's your first time to an amusement park. Nianian raised his head. Can I refuse? Lin Che's face stiffened. No. Can I not want the reward anymore? Now, you must want it. Actually, he just wanted some money. Lin Che looked at Gu Jingze. You are quite free now, right? Gu Jingze took one look. This was obviously just a mother and son discussion about going to the amusement park. How come he was brought up? Gu Jingze asked, what has that got to do with me? Lin Che said, of course, you have to go too. It would only be interesting if the whole family of 3 goes. Think about it. Sitting on the carousel, exploring the maze, going to the haunted house, anyways it would only be fun if all 3 of us go. Actually, the more the merrier, but we have not been there as a family, so let's go there as a family this time. As Lin Che spoke, she could not stop looking forward to going there. Gu Shinian straightened his face, his expression downcast. Daddy. Gu Jingze could only shrug. In their family, Lin Che called the shots. Gu Shinian felt even more speechless. Excessive yin causing yang deficiency. When Lin Che was overly excited by herself, she saw the 2 looking downcast. She looked down at them, hands at her hips as she asked, what do you 2 mean by that? Was she the only one who found going to the amusement park interesting? Gu Shinian said, what we meant was as long as you are happy. Lin Che pouted, looking at her husband and son. No emotions, I think I should have had a girl like Union. Wherever I bring her to, she would be sensible and obedient, and especially good at showing support. Gu Jingze's eyes lit up. He sneakily shifted to her side. This I can help you with. Seeing how he seriously spoke about this in front of the children. Lin Che looked back and rolled her eyes. Chapter 810. Gu Jingze had already decided on her status. Seeing how he seriously spoke about this in front of the children. Lin Che looked back and rolled her eyes. Lin Che said, anyways I have decided to go. If you want to be my family you will go with me. If you don't, I will not force you to, humph. Gu Jingze and Gu Shinian looked at each other and then glanced at Lin Che who had raised her foot and immediately stepped out. Even though this woman was not young anymore, she was still so childish and thinking about nonsensical stuff every day. Gu Jingze and Gu Shinian looked down, resigned to fate. Today, however, Gu Shan called to tell Lin Che to come to see him. Gu Jingze said, Grandfather, your health is not good recently, so don't work anymore. Lin Che is just here. You can see her whenever you want to, so it makes no difference if you see her when you are better. Gu Shan said, I also want to see my great-grandchild. I am old and don't have many days left, so I cannot see him that many times anymore. Fine, you are the head of the family now. Can I even control you? What are you afraid of? You don't need to be afraid of anyone. Gu Jingze thought about it and looked in Lin Che's direction. Okay, I will bring them for dinner at night. That's great, I will call the chef to prepare something that little Che and Nianian like to eat. Tell me what they like to eat. Anything will be fine, it doesn't have to be too special. Gu Jingze told Lin Che, grandfather wants to see Nianian. Lin Che looked back. Although she was not the type to be vengefully jealous, she suffered a lot because of Gu Shan. She still felt some unwillingness in her heart to go meet him. Gu Jingze looked at her. If you don't want to, I will reject him now unless you want to. Lin Che stopped him. Never mind, why refuse him? Until she wanted to, they would have to meet one day, so they might as well meet earlier. Lin Che said, I think since grandfather wants to see Nianian, he will not make things difficult for me. It's okay if I go see him. But she would not show any enthusiasm for people she did not like. She liked the grandfather back then, so she was very close to him. Now that it was only a relationship that required meeting up, she could not guarantee that her expression would be good then. Anyway, it would depend on her mood. Gu Jingze said, don't worry. I will not allow him to make things difficult for you. He discreetly squeezed her hands and started thinking. He said, however, I think I should first tell you. Grandfather has not much time left. What? Lin Che was shocked for a moment. She always thought he was in good health. And besides, with so many people serving him while using the best medical equipment, any problem should be detected anytime. Gu Jingze said, grandfather already had lung cancer a few years ago. Now, a large portion of his lungs was removed and his windpipe almost got replaced by a man-made one. He looks like he is healthy, but it is already much worse than before. Lung cancer that's so severe. Lin Che knew this was probably because of the Gu family. If it was any normal family, he would probably be gone by now. However, he managed to pull through so many years with no danger. Gu Jingze said, so he will not care about most things. Lin Che said, but even if he has not much time left, I will not forgive all the things he had done to us. It is not because I am not empathetic enough, but if he can even abandon his great-grandson, he will obviously have no feelings towards me. I will at most not say anything too severe, seeing that he is sick. Gu Jingze said, of course. He pulled Lin Che's hand. I will not let him say anything too severe to you. But I don't think he will be like that. She looked up and smiled faintly at him. The duo drove back to the Gu family mansion with their child. The young master of the Gu family stepped in, looking fresh. The maids were already waiting at home, excited to see the young master. They had heard rumors that a young master was very clever. Once he returned, Gu Jingze immediately brought him to the company and notified the stakeholders that he would groom him since he was young. Judging by this sequence, it was the same as Gu Jingze back then. Both were confirmed as the heirs since they were 3. But what was different was that Lin Che's family background was disapproved since the start. However, since Gu Jingze forcefully supported her, his actions made all those who wanted to side against Miss Yun disregard the idea. Gu Jingze had already confirmed Lin Che's status. Even in the future, it might not change. They must not offend Lin Che at all. Lin Che got out of the car and looked at the place she had not been to for a long time. After not coming for ages, she felt a little unaccustomed. But the maid's respect for her had increased a little. Upon seeing Gu Xinian stepping out of the car, the 2 rows of maids respectfully bowed their heads and said, Sir, Madam, young master. Lin Che carefully realized that Gu Jingze's title had changed from second young master to Sir. That was because he had succeeded as the head of the Gu family. Their titles also changed as a result. Lin Che smiled at everyone and Gu Jingze pulled her into the house. Mu Wanqing was sitting inside. Seeing Lin Che, she smiled, a little worried. She glanced at Nianian and waved. Nianian, hurry over, come to your grandmother. Gu Xinian was very obedient here. He respectfully raised his head and greeted, Granny. Hey, that's great. She looked at Lin Che. This child looks exactly the same as young Jingze. I almost mistook him for Jingze. Lin Che wordlessly thought that she felt the same too. Initially, she did not think Jingze would be that powerful. However, as she watched Xinian grew up a little by little, she began to feel that Jingze were really powerful. Mu Wanqing pulled Lin Che and whispered, if grandfather wants to see you alone, I will not allow it. Don't worry. Lin Che knew Mu Wanqing was worried. She smiled and patted on Mu Wanqing's firm grip on her hands. Mom, don't worry, I will not let grandfather do anything to me. Mu Wanqing's expression was still not settled. But just as she was about to say something, Ji Yushand walked out from inside. Little Che. His voice changed a lot, probably due to the artificial windpipe. Lin Che turned and looked at him. She realized that he really looked much older. His face was full of crossing wrinkles and age spots in the corner of his eyes were increasingly obvious. But Lin Che could never believe how he chased after her to let her abort the child. She could only neutrally greet him. However, she saw that after Ji Yushand walked over, the person behind him. The person supporting him was Yun Luo.